growing up without my dad around, all through my basically from the last of my elementary school all the way through college, I didn't have a strong male role model. The skills that you might think are essential for being a dad weren't really taught to me as a dad in that time frame because there wasn't really anybody there to do that. And for what it's worth, now closer to 50 than I am to 25, I realize that there are quite a few books out there on what it means to be a husband, what it means to be a man, what it means to be a father, but being a dad's a little bit different. I mean, just a little bit different. But I can tell you that as I've reached the place in my life now where two of my children have children of their own, watching them, actually, excuse me, three of my children have children of their own, watching them as they parent, watching them as they protect, as they look out for, it's pretty fascinating. It's pretty fascinating the things that they're willing to sacrifice for their own children. And they're young. The children are young. I've had two grandbabies just in the last several months. But seeing as that switch takes place from young adult, from the vibrant, carefree, nothing goes wrong, everything's in my favor teenager, to the young adult, to the parent, it's such a rapid progression. But the change that seems to take place in our hearts and our maturity and our understanding of the world is pretty drastic as well. Suddenly we go from how do I get what I want out of life, how do I get more for me out of life, to how can I stop what the world is doing to us as a generation, as a people, as human race? How can I slow that tide before it overwhelms me and my children? And if you're not a parent, if you've never raised children, this may not mean anything to you. If you were raised by parents who worked 40 hours a week, both of them 50 hours a week, they were seldom home, they weren't deeply involved in your schoolwork or your part-time jobs or your hobbies or who your friends were or what you were doing, then this probably doesn't make much sense to you at all. But I can tell you, as I watch the young adults in my life become parents and that protective nature come out in them, there was a ridiculous video a few years ago. It's probably been 3 or 4 years now, maybe a little longer than that, called Honey Badger Don't Care. And honey badger it's a real creature, but a honey badger is a very small in stature animal. It may be 60 pounds tops, but it has long claws for digging. Now, when I was in high school, our high school mascot was the badger. And the badger is a pretty ferocious little animal. It doesn't look like a wolf or a lion. It looks like a giant rat. But you don't want to corner a badger. You don't want to get a badger backed into the corner or backed up against the wall. You don't want to put a badger's life in danger because a badger will rip you to shreds to get free. Long claws, long teeth, thick skin, lots of hair, and it's mostly muscle. So when you unleash a badger, you unleash a lot of fury in a small package. I don't know if you've ever tried to put a cat in a washing machine, but imagine that with a baby lion or a full-grown lion, because you're talking about a lot of mass and a lot of muscle in a very dense space with really long claws and vicious teeth and a die if I have to kind of an attitude. It is a powerful, powerful picture to think of a honey badger as a parent. But as I'm watching these young adults parenting my grandchildren, that's the kind of reactions that I'm seeing. From the pictures on Instagram, to the pictures on Facebook, to the relationships they have in social media. I remember, and this has been 25 years ago, it was before I met my wife, I was dating a young girl for a short period of time, and she already had a 2-year-old. She lived in Corpus Christi, and I'd driven down from Austin to visit her in Corpus Christi, and we went to the grocery store. And while we were in the grocery store, This 2-year-old was in the cart. I was pushing the cart. And as we got stuck in the express lane, a woman from the other end of my basket tried to reach into the basket. Thankfully, we had her little seatbelt strapped because she had tendencies to climb out. But one woman reached over, grabbed her under the arms, and tried to take her out of the basket to take her away from me. And I thought, who does that? This two-year-old baby girl with her mom and me, just some guy. But this woman wanted to snatch her and take her to Mexico and sell her on the black market. And I thought, who even does that? I didn't realize there was such a world as that. But when Mom saw what was happening, she laid on that basket with everything that she had. All of her weight went on that basket. She started pulling it back against me. When she lost her footing, I realized that the best weapon I had was that basket, and I slammed it as hard as I could into the woman trying to take the baby, knocking the wind out of her. She tumbled to the ground. I got up and ran out the door, and that's how we kept the baby from being snatched. But with the two of us standing there, knowing that she had the basket as a buffer, she chose to try to take that baby in broad daylight. Again, this was 25 years ago. I can't imagine how much more brazen criminals like that are today. When they get away with it, when they can make so much money on the black market selling a baby or sex trafficking a baby or sex trafficking a young girl, they will sacrifice their lives for the amount of money that they can make. They'll sacrifice their freedom for the amount of money that they can make. And it's not just little girls. It's little girls and little boys all over the world being sucked into this sex trafficking theme. And they start with the pictures that you put on social media. Now, I love to take pictures of my grandbabies. I love to see them when they smile. I love to see them when they cuddle. I love to watch them growing up. And I can tell you this, I don't have 1,000th the number of pictures of my kids growing up that I do of my grandchildren. And it's not because I don't love my children as much. It's because I didn't have a cell phone on my hip 24/7 that was capable of taking picture-worthy photographs of my children. In fact, when my children were the age my grandchildren are now, there was no such thing as a cell phone. We had the big bag phone, and you couldn't take a picture with it. You had to have a cord long enough to plug into the wall or the car in order to be able to use this silly thing. So there was no picture taking with that. But now that we can shoot a picture, snap a photo, and they can be tagged by geography. Where are you? What were you doing? And people can look at your Instagram and go, hey, look, this woman with this cute little baby was in the Walmart store 12 minutes ago. And suddenly you're a target. They know who you are. They know what you look like. They know what you're wearing. They know what store you're in. They could probably even tell from the photograph what aisle you were on if you were checking out or trying on Halloween costumes. And that is a frightening locating tool for would-be bad people. And we have to decide as parents what we will do about it. Now, I have one son that works in manual labor. He works a lot with construction materials. He usually has a knife in each of his hip pockets, one on his hip and one in his boot, and different knives to cut different things to be able to get his job done. But he's always, if you will, loaded for bear. He's also close to 6'5" and has hands big enough to palm a basketball. He's been able to lift a basketball with one hand since he was 4 or 5 years old. He's a pretty sizable fellow and armed to the teeth. Ironically, the only one that doesn't have children yet. But I can tell you that my girls have found fellows that are more than physically capable of defending their children and their wife. And my youngest son, he's about 3.5 inches taller than I am and about 50 pounds heavier and played football most of his life. He's fairly physically fit, but he's a sizable fellow too. He's a very big teddy bear, but I have a feeling if you messed with his daughter, he'd go into Papa Bear mode pretty fast. Which one do you fear most? Mommy mode? The one who would be drugged by her seatbelt to death if you try to carjack her car with her kids in it? We've seen those videos, haven't we? Papa Bear mode, who would go all out and lose his life or take yours to protect his family. Or Honey Badger mode, that says, I don't care. I'm going to rip you to shreds, and I will give everything I have to see to it that you are destroyed. There was a movie a few years ago called Taken. The sequel, unfortunately, wasn't quite as good, but it was still pretty good. But in the first movie, Taken, when the little girl was kidnapped to be taken into a sex trafficking ring, her dad got his hands on the phone number of and got in touch with the group that took his daughter. And he was really clear. In a very calm and sincere voice, he said, I have a very special set of skills. And you're going to want to return her, or you're going to face the wrath of those skills. I think that's about as close to a warning as you get from honey badger mode. It's one thing to mess with me. It's another thing to mess with my wife, but we're both adults. And we can handle ourselves to a certain degree. You mess with me, I will probably walk away, to be honest with you. I have a pretty high tolerance, not only for pain, but for stupidity. You mess with my wife, my tolerance level is not nearly as high. I will defend her without hesitation. And sometimes to my own peril, but I will. But if you mess with my children, Papa Bear mode is the first level. And then honey badger mode will catch it. And if you mess with my grandchildren, you go from 0 to honey badger in an instant. Now, I know I'm not the only parent with that same kind of mentality, because I see them every day. I see parents who are willing to lay down their life and work 60 or 70 hours a week so their kids can have the tennis shoes they want, so they can live in the house they want, so they can have the car they want, so they can go to the school they want. Parents who are willing to lay down everything of their own personhood, of their own identity, of their own preferences, so that their children can have what they want. And I see them make those sacrifices every day. I also see those parents, like the woman who was dragged by her seatbelt because she refused to get out of the car when they were trying to carjack it because her children were in the car. She's like, you can have the car, but you can't have my kids. And she was willing to die for that. And I think there are fathers out there who will step in front of a bullet to defend their children, who will step in front of a bullet even to defend the children that are not theirs, but belong to someone else. Because I believe there is still man out there. But let me go one step further into a cosmic reality. The reason the cross happened is because the human soul was being battled for. Satan said, I want to destroy every one of them. If I can't have heaven, they can't either. And God said, but you've forgotten something. Those are my kids. And I will give anything and everything to restore them to me. And so he took his only son and he put him on a cross where he died. For the sole purpose of saying, I will give anything to get my children back. And he did. He gave anything and he gave everything. But see, now he's in a different position. Because the price has already been paid for his children to be redeemed, he sits on the throne waiting for the children to come back to him. The opportunity has already been afforded. The war has already been fought. It's already been won. But many of the children don't know it. There are a lot of sacrifices we make for our children that our children don't realize were sacrifices, or that they're simply ungrateful for. We buy them things. We give them things. We do for them. And they look at us and go, but I wanted that one because it's better. I wanted the other one because it's more, it's fancier, it's more special. It's what everybody else has. And they don't realize we've given everything we had to get what we did give them. There's nothing left to give. But that's the truth of the cosmic reality of the Father and the Son. But wait, there's more. I know it sounds like an infomercial. Because until Jesus left and the ascension, we didn't have access to the Holy Spirit in the same way that we do now. So the Father said, I'll give my Son to redeem them, to buy them back. But I need to equip them to be able to fight the fight themselves. And so he sent the Holy Spirit and he said, you go down there and fill every single one of them to the capacity that they will accept, and empower them to extinguish the fiery darts of the enemy. Give them the strength to stand up against anything the world can throw at them. Give them the ability to go into full badger mode, to defend their own, to fight in prayer, to attack the powers of darkness. Give them what it takes to overcome, to overwhelm, and to stand strong. And so the Holy Spirit is provided for every last one of us. Greater is he that's in you than he that's in the earth. Because the last thing you want, as the old sermon from I believe it was late 1700s said, from the 18th century, it is a horrible and fearful thing to fall into the hands of an angry God. But for those who would do harm to the children of God, for those who would do harm to your children and to my children, Jesus said it would be better for them that a millstone, a giant stone that they used to crush grain, that would be tied around their neck and they would be cast into the sea, than to let the harm come to even one of my little children. That tells me right there that both Jesus Christ and God the Father will go in full honey badger mode if you mess with their children. Are you in the family of God? Are you Papa Bear? Are you in full mommy mode? Are you in honey badger mode where you look at your children and say, I will give anything, even to death, to defend, to protect, to look out for? That was also the request God gave to his sons, to look out for their wives. He said, I want you to love your wife like Christ loved the church, even obedience unto death. Husbands, fathers, dads, do you love your family like that? Would you, even unto the point of death, be obedient to God to do what he asks you to do? That's the challenge for you today. As we face all of the uncertainty of this world and all the darkness and all the division and all of the challenges, all of the fear that tries to overwhelm us, are you willing, are you ready, are you able to stand up and fight in the spiritual realm against the enemies of your family, against the enemies of your children, against the enemies of your spouse, against the enemies of this world, and against the children of God? Are you prepared? If not, you got some work to do. Get yourself in shape spiritually. Physically is important, but get yourself in shape spiritually. Get ready to fight the battle, because it's coming, and it's not getting lighter. It's getting worse. I'm J Loren Norris, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day, and make sure you crush that subscribe button, whether you watch on Facebook or YouTube. This program is daily, every morning, Monday through Friday at 6:20 a.m. Today was a little late, sorry. But share this video, share it with some friends of yours who would be encouraged by it. And if you'd like to get these every day, there's two ways to get that. You can go to the subscribe button on Facebook, on iTunes, and down in the box, the description box, there's an iPod or an iTunes subscription button as well. You can click there, and every time you upload your podcast subscriptions, it will come straight to your device. You can also go to the Tell It Like It Is fan page on Facebook, subscribe there, and then click the sign up button, and I will actually send you just a synopsis of all 5 videos from the week in an email. You'll get it on Thursday morning, and you can choose which ones you want to watch. They'll come simply as a link, not a bunch of videos to clog up your email system, but just a link. You can click on them by title and decide which ones you want to watch. I would appreciate you being a part of that process, and I appreciate you being here today and allowing me to be a part of your day. God bless.